Welcome to Your Spiritual Besties Podcast. I'm Lauren Leduc.
And I'm Rashida McCoy. We're here to laugh, cry, learn, and connect with you.
We discuss anything and everything from our everyday lives to the magical, mystical, and woo-woo.
So take a deep breath, grab a cup of tea,
and set an intention to receive, because you deserve it, bestie. Hi, Rashida.
Hey, Lauren. How are you today?
I'm feeling spooky.
Ooh, what do we have going on today, Lauren?
Well, as probably everyone knows, it's Halloween or almost Halloween. And we're going to be talking about this next little turn of the wheel, which is Samhain. Happy Samhain.
Happy Samhain to you. Yes, this is going to be happening in a little while. And I'm kind of excited to talk about this. I don't know about you, Lauren, but growing up, I didn't know anything about Samhain. It was Halloween. And I just thought it was this time where I got to watch Hocus Pocus, eat a lot of candy, and dress up. And I didn't really know much about it. So I'm really excited to share about Samhain and where actually the term and what we celebrate today, Halloween, comes from.
Yeah.
So, should we get into it?
Let's talk about it. Yes. So Samhain, which I did not know how to say this for a long time because it's Samhain.
Yeah, you thought Samhain. You're like,
Yeah.
what is this? Very, very American of me, right?
Yeah, salmon. It's where we sit around and eat fish. It's October 31st, so same day as Halloween. And it's the pagan version, I suppose. So it's an ancient holiday, and it's a time where the veil is said to be thinner between the world of the living and the world of the dead. And there are a lot of traditions from Samhain that have become Halloween, essentially. So I think it's really interesting, like with the holidays that many of us practice in modern times and in the US, that a lot of the rituals that we do have these ancient origins that have like seemingly nothing to do with our current intentions, you know? So this one is no different. And there's definitely a reason for that of like, you know, religions adopting the previous culture's rituals to like make it easier to colonize, essentially. So I have a little bit about like what they would do in the ancient times. And then if you know more about the history too, please feel free to share. I've shared this book before, but it's called Circle Round, Raising Children in Goddess Traditions by Starhawk, Diane Baker, and Anne Hill. And this is what I generally reference for these different Sabbats. It says, in ancient times, Samhain was believed to be the time when the veil was thinner between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Our ancestors could return to visit us to give us help and advice. People set lights in hollowed out turnips to guide the spirits of the dead and put out food as an offering. These customs live on today. The lights have become the jack-o'-lanterns we carve from pumpkins. The offerings of food became the trick-or-treat candy we give to children. And the spirits of the dead have become the ghosts and skeletons and scary monsters of our costumes and decorations.
I love how it put it so succinctly. And that is like such a great explanation of Halloween or Samhain. And you touched on it a little bit, Lauren, but I would love to go into why it changed, or we now call it Halloween instead of Samhain. And I think it's important to note, like you said, a lot of these traditions have been adopted because of the church and because of, you know, conquering and all of these different things. So, we have Samhain, a time where the veil is the thinnest, and it's a time to honor our ancestors, and it's a time to, really pay homage to those who came before us by the offerings, even like, and I can get into other things too that you can do at this time, by like setting a plate out for those of your ancestors. But when we think about when religion really turned from this polytheistic type of setting, which it was for our ancestors, to a monotheistic, you wanted to have like a way for people to believe in these things. Also, if you have a culture or people who are celebrating something already, what better way than to turn it into something different and more alignment with, i.e., the church? So, for instance, our ancestors were honoring our ancestors, honoring people. Um, this is like the last harvest, right? This is technically like the end of the year type of setting. And so people were already doing this at this time. And so when the church came in and saw this, there needed to be some type of control. So it actually went and don't quote me, but I want to say it turned into All Saints Eve, I want to say, where you would pay homage to the saints. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I pulled up the Google machine, and it says in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as the time to honor saints. Soon after, All Saints' Day came to incorporate some of the traditions of Samhain. The evening before All Saints' Day was known as All Hallows' Eve, which later
Mm,
became Halloween.
okay. Which is, how I guess we got to still feel good about ourselves. I'm talking as if I'm the ancestor. And then also buying into this religion. It's how we got to be a little bit controlled in a way, if you think
Mm.
about it. So I think that is worth noting, and knowing like the origins of this thing that we allow our children to participate in, and also like letting them know too what it's and not just about. It's not just about the candy. It's not just about the dressing up. So thank you for sharing that, Lauren. I can't really think of any other historical significance around Samhain other than what I already shared with it being the last harvest. So if you follow the wheel of the year, there are three harvest times, this one marking the last and also the end. It's
Yeah.
technically marking the end of, in a way, summer almost before the winter solstice, which marks rebirth. So you have this like balance, this death and rebirth type of aspect happening in this time. So, yeah, what else do you have to say about Samhain?
Um, in the book, it says it's their New Year's Day. It says it may seem strange to have a new year begin in the fall when the days are growing shorter and colder, but death and birth are two sides of the same thing.
Mm,
Because this is the time when we think most about death, it is also the time of new beginnings when we think about hope and change and what the next year will bring.
I love that. So instead of it being like near the end of the year, and this is a Celtic tradition, if I'm not mistaken, this is like their New Year's.
Hmm. Yeah, a couple other things to add is that the goddess associated with this holiday is the crone. So you
Makes
think,
sense.
yeah, the wise old lady. Um, so wisdom, definitely closer to death, therefore more wise and like closer to the other side.
Mhm.
And the god is the horned god. So we think of the horned god as like a devil or something like that, but it's actually a hunting god. So this time of year, they're not really harvesting food anymore. They have it all like stored and prepared for the winter, but they can still hunt.
There's the hunt.
Yes.
Ah, I love that.
Yeah. So kind of interesting how that's become something like kind of twisted and evil over time. It makes you wonder, like, yeah, the Catholics are probably like, well, this horned god looks like how we portrayed the devil, so it's the devil.
It's the devil. Yeah.
It's the
Well,
devil. Um, there are different ways to celebrate. So, I mean, for me, I think Halloween is a lot of fun. So that's certainly one of the ways that I want to celebrate. But I also really like the aspect of not just being into like the scariness of it, but truly honoring our ancestors and honoring our loved ones who have passed. Um, and it's funny, like this book talks about how this wasn't meant to be like a scary, like Samhain isn't a scary holiday. They didn't see life and death in the same way. They didn't see like communing or with ancestors as something like scary or bad or something to be feared. Instead, it's just a normal part of life, and this is when you do it in the wheel of the year. Um, and I love how, like in Mexico, they still have Dia de los Muertos, which is very much all about that, about having an altar with your loved ones' pictures on it and putting candy and gifts and flowers and things on the altar to honor them. Um, we have something like we have a photo of my mother-in-law like on our entry table. It's actually an old radio, but when you first walk in the door, and I think all of us, except for maybe Gemma, like say hi to her most days, and you know maybe Arthur talks to her a little bit more. But we've had a few people pass in our lives in the last couple of years, so it would be nice to um, really take the time to just talk to them and
to
honor
talk to
them.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. And like our family altar that we have down here does not include any pictures of our ancestors, but for Samhain, we are going to have an altar. And how Daniel and I are going to, in a way, celebrate this time and really honoring our ancestors is we're going to have a little Samhain ritual. This is going to be the first year that we do it. But just like I shared for Mabin, um, a bonfire is always a great way to bring a little ritual into the experience, a way of connecting and just having the mood set right for this time, sharing stories, talking to our loved ones around a circle and an open fire. But that's what we're going to do. His brother passed this year, this not this year, last year at the end of the year, Christmas time. And then I think I shared with you, Lauren, but when Maciana was growing in my belly, we lost Daniel's dad. And we also lost my grandfather on my mom's side and my grandfather on my dad's side. Yeah. So a lot of that energy is some of them I feel are around. So I think it would just be nice to not just talk about them, loosely with each other, which is always great to remember who they are and talk about them, but really taking the time to honor them. And so Daniel and I are going to have a little ritual where we're going to do a little fire and we're going to invite some friends over, and this will be the time that we share stories about them and have their picture and really like have a plate for them and give them offerings. And as the years go on, death is inevitable, and obviously there will be more pictures added to this Samhain altar that we're going to create. But I think it's important to hold these people in our memories, but take this time. There's a lot of potent magic in this time. Our ancestors felt it. Our ancestors, used it, and it's a nice reclamation to like really bring that in for ourselves and not just go to a gravesite as the only time that you honor and think about these loved ones. So really excited. I'm not really sure how it's going to go. This is our first year doing it, but this is going to be amazing. We're going to be out in nature, which is obviously another way to connect at this time. And I know we share that a lot, like connect with nature as if nature is outside of us. But I think a lot of times when the weather starts to get a little bit cold, we tend to go indoors. But this really is a way to connect with this energy.
Yeah, I love that you guys are doing that. There's a similar practice in the book that is like an ancestor feast. So it's similar to what you're talking about. It's preparing a feast and then telling stories about ancestors. But it has a blessing that I wanted to share that says, "Ancestors, beloved dead, you who gave us our lives, this food is for you. We give back to you. We remember you, and so you live on. Join us now, feast with us, visit us in our dreams. We love you. Blessed be."
Mm,
Um,
I love that.
yeah, yeah. I think we have such a messed up relationship with death in our culture, and I don't think many of us are given ways to like truly grieve and to truly like come to terms with our own deaths and things like that. And I would think like if this type of celebration was more of a regular part of our culture, that we'd maybe have healthier views and more acceptance around this natural process of life, which is death. This also talks about visiting ancestors, so meaning like visiting gravestones and cemeteries if you have ancestors in those places. There's an ancestor tree, so that's like creating a family tree and
Hmm.
just looking at your lineage. Um, if you have access to that information, um, there's all kinds of cool practices, like, and then all the stuff we already do, carving pumpkins. Uh, they have a sugar skull recipe, which is pretty cool for Day of the
Oh.
Dead. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of what we already do, but I think honoring those who've passed and um, not doing it in a spooky way. I think it's still fun to like do some of the spooky stuff. I personally have had a hard time watching anything too scary, and since Gemma was born, um, my
Mhm.
tolerance just like really went down for that stuff because I actually used to really love it. Um, certain types, like not just like not gory, but like psychologically scary. Um,
Mhm.
there's something about like being really safe at home, but like putting your nervous system in that state that's like really satisfying in like a weird way.
Yeah.
And I see it in Gemma now. It's just so funny because she loves Halloween and spooky and zombies and witches and ghosts, and she doesn't even know what any of that stuff is. She doesn't know
Right.
she doesn't know what death is just yet. But um, it's funny. She's like so drawn to the ooh spooky.
Yeah, and there's something about it. I think what you were saying, and this is just like a little, for me, a little mom gem. When we are pregnant and subsequently we have our babies, there's something that happens within us. When I was pregnant with Macy and also with Miles, I could not watch scary movies. My dreams were off the chain, and to the point where I would wake up with my heart racing, and it just was not, I wasn't getting great sleep anyway, right? But it just was not. And so I would find myself wanting to watch after, like after I had the babies and I, was getting back to myself. Daniel's all about um a good scary movie, but Lauren, I just couldn't anymore. There was just something about, I don't know. Maybe I was just too into it, more in tune with myself and the things around me and the possibilities of my children. So I think that's funny that you said that you don't have a tolerance for it anymore either, because I don't as well.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little more intrigued, not by like watching gory stuff, but there was one show on Netflix that came out a few years ago that I was like kind of thinking about watching again because it's so beautifully told. And I think that's part of like ghost stories or scary stories, like they're the most interesting when they are about like our family or loved ones that have passed or like deal with our own mortality instead of just like a spooky bad guy. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, there's like meaning behind it
yeah, and
almost.
they can be
Yeah.
like historical and, just beautiful in a tragic way. And like that is
Mhm.
appealing to me. Um, it's called The Haunting of Hill House. Did you ever hear of that?
I don't think so.
It is really good. It definitely has some jump scares and stuff, but the story as a whole is very beautiful and very sad,
Okay.
and it's about a family. And yeah, and so the same like filmmakers and some of the same actors do another season, but it's like a totally different story. And I think they have
Okay.
just another one come out recently, which is what piqued my interest a little bit. Um, yeah, that interests me just because it's more relatable than, like, a chainsaw massacre or something like that.
Or like creepy children in a cornfield or
Yeah, that I'm not, like, excited about,
yeah.
Arthur and I used to take, like, the whole month of October and just watch, like, scary movie after scary movie, and I always handled it a lot better than
That is so funny because Daniel, I'm gonna throw him out there because he's hilarious. He's the first one to want to watch a scary movie, but then he literally has to keep a light on for a few days. I'm like, dude, how am I gonna like feel safe if you don't even feel safe in our own house right now? Do you want me to be the big spoon?
For real. The thing is, like, he watches shows that I could never watch because they're more like, he loves stuff about the cartel. He loves, like, stuff about serial killers. He likes stuff that's, like, real, and that, like, I'm not really that interested in. I know people love their murder stories and things like that, but I'm like, I don't wanna actually be, like, scared of real people here. Um
Yeah, it's too well, and that goes to like talking about like how we create our own reality. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? If it is so closely real, it's almost in a way, I'm not saying that it is going to. I think it depends on like all your thoughts that you have leading up to it and afterwards, but we can invite these things, these energies in simply from fiction.
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah, in our, just to get a little spooky here. In our intuition training, it's not really that spooky, but we talk a little bit about like entities and we worked with that, right? That there can be like negative entities attached to people.
yes.
Um, and they can be pretty innocuous um, to something that's more formed and conscious and a little scary. But I liked the context that we learned this in, that they're not necessarily bad. It's like they mistake the human for the light.
Yeah. And therefore attaches on.
Yeah, but as we learned it, it's like it doesn't necessarily mean something. Yeah, it's not a demon or anything like that. It's like you can have a negative thought pattern that you tell yourself for years, and it actually becomes this, like, energetic thing.
Leech.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a leech. Um So yeah, we worked on like removing those and stuff, which is not as like scary or anything as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty chill for the most part.
It was, I think, but I think learning the concept and like what it actually is.
Mm,
And I found myself being very surprised when I would see these things on people that I was reading and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And it's not scary. You're right. It's just like this little pocket of like maybe negative energy that just needs to be released.
mhm.
And it's not trying to do the human they're attached to a disservice. And actual in all actuality, I think if I remember correctly, and sometimes when I get the feeling it thinks it's helping in a way
Yeah.
and it's not. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting initially, and then a little illuminating once we got into it and learned more about what these entities can be and what they actually are.
I think so. Yeah, for me personally, that's not like the full-on direction I wanted to head in as far as like being of service to people with reading. Um, but I know I'm glad I have the skill
Mhm.
if I should encounter it. I personally think that they can attach to like homes too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Like right now we are in the process of selling a home that we own, and a couple a couple messed up things happened while we lived there, and then a few messed up things have happened since we lived there. We've been renting it out the last few years. It's an old house, so who knows like what
What
went
happened
on.
before? Yeah.
Yeah, old for the US, right? Like it's 100. It was built in like 1908 or something like that.
Mm.
And yeah, Arthur is going over there and cleaning it out right now, and like because we still had some stuff in the basement, and he's just like he's texted me. He's like, "What can I do with this house?" He's like, "Can you come sage it or like do something with it?" He's like, "It just." He's like so ready to be done cleaning it out because it just has such like
A heavy feeling
for
almost.
him, yeah.
Yeah.
And it served us well. I never had like besides just regular folks being around the house who did messed up things or um just being in the inner city where certain types of violence and drugs and things like that happen. I never felt like a spooky presence in the house or anything like
Mm.
that. It's more human. But yeah, I was like I'm sure I could do something to like try to detach because it's getting new owners and we want it to be a pleasant place for them. And the neighborhood's changed a lot too in the last few years. So I'm sure it will be a wonderful home. But yeah, we're just ready to be done with it. And I do wonder, like,
What
what, yeah,
I'd
if
be
it could be
interested to
cleared.
know would you be the one to do the clearing or would you bring somebody in to clear it, you think?
I think I'd be fine doing it, because
I'd
I
love
know how
to
to like
know
double up
what
and.
comes. Yeah, protect yourself, shield
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about like your house being like, the bad things that happen. It's just, full human being humans, whether it's a little strayed. But have you ever had any like experience that you just know is a bit otherworldly?
Yes.
Ooh, do
I've had it.
tell.
I've had a few. So I don't really have any ghost stories. I've been like, I was very afraid of that as a kid, and even still at night, if I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I get that feeling of like, oh God, I really don't want to see anything right now. So I feel like I have some boundaries up when it comes to that, you know? The majority of my experiences have been through dreams that have felt profound in some way.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'll share a few. First, I will say before that, that when I was really little, I think I might have shared this before. I would see like figures in my room and try to like reach.
Yeah.
I would think they were my mom or something, and then they would just disappear when I like said mom or tried to reach out. But I always would just like go back to sleep and whatever because I was like 3 or 4, like
Yeah, it's not scary at that point.
it wasn't to me. Yeah, and I think they just looked like people or whatever. So I don't know if that was just like a waking dream type phenomenon or if there was something in the house or maybe something protective. Like I don't know. But I will say I don't believe I have seen anything since then. I have like felt things in places. I worked at this vintage store. This is crazy that I even like I don't know if I could handle this now, but like I worked at a vintage store in Florida for a few years and we had like so many pieces of vintage clothing like crammed into this shop that was in a building that was a couple hundred years old, I think.
Mhm.
And we also had like a sister antique store and we'd go over there. So I was just like surrounded by old stuff all the time with other people's energies. But the shop was said to be haunted, and I would like feel like I could see things out of the corner of my eye sometimes. I was also stoned like all the time back then. So not that I've ever seen anything like when I was getting high or whatever, but like I don't really know, but it definitely had like a feel to it of like, this place is interesting. And the people who worked there always characters, so people would have
Yeah.
stories and stuff, and it was more fun than anything else. But I would get a little creeped out being in the antique store by myself because we had a lot of like things that were Victorian age and earlier, and it's kind of interesting. Just an aside, like it's funny how we define old, and then you go to Europe and everything is like hundreds of years old, if not thousands.
Right.
We're like, oh, that house is haunted. It's 100 years old. They're like, oh, that house is brand new. It's 100 years
That's a
old.
brand new house. What are you talking about? Just still shows just how new we are,
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Um, but I'll go into more like specific experiences. So, um, I know I had a dream after my grandfather passed, and this was in the early 2000s. And it was real simple. Like he was just saying like, "Oh, I love you," and goodbye and stuff. I didn't think much of it, but then a couple of my cousins told me that they had really similar dreams. So that was a
Mhm.
really cool thing. Um, and then I had a couple similar things, but with two different beings. So I had a cat who passed in 2015, and he had kind of been with me through some tumultuous years and a lot of change. He passed all of a sudden, and I had a dream where like we were walking around a house with people in it and nobody could see him except for me. And then I knew that like a train was coming to come get him, and I helped him onto the train to like go off to the other side.
Aw.
Yeah. So that felt good. Like I don't know if it was just my subconscious or if it was his energy, but it felt nice to have that closure, you know,
Mhm.
and to like see him safely off. And then my mother-in-law passed a couple years ago, and we were pretty close. She had a lot of love for me, and I had a couple different dreams with her. So it was when Gemma was really little, and I was sleep deprived and tired and just, new mom stuff. And I had this dream that I like met with her in this like beautiful tropical home, like in a screen and porch with all these plants and stuff. And she looked like all happy. And, um, I was telling her how I was feeling like with the new baby, and she like kind of scooped me up, and I almost became like a little baby, and I just got to like cry and cry while she held me.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that was a really cool dream. And then I had another dream with her a few months later. My father-in-law was staying with us while it was like her birthday. So it was like her first birthday since she had passed. And I had a dream that night that I was tasked with like walking her over this bridge, and it was like a bridge over water, and then there were like people on the other side waiting for her. And she was like really scared. She thought the water was going to like come up and get her or something like that. But to me, it looked really peaceful. And I'm like, no, no, it's fine. And I just walked her over the bridge and said goodbye. So kind of similar to the cat dream in a way of like walking someone to the other side.
Wow.
But they felt really, I still have like a visceral memory of the dreams. So they felt really real to me. And it felt like a nice way to like connect with her and just see her. And it was nice like telling Arthur, my husband, about her in the dreams, because when I told him about the first one, he was like, "Oh, she's in Hawaii." Like that sounds like Hawaii to me.
Oh, it was like, oh, that's so
Yeah, like
cool.
he just like recognized what I was talking about right away. And then, obviously the second one is pretty sweet. I think I was maybe one of the only people connected with her not that I wasn't grieving, but I was just like far enough removed from the situation where I could like, I would just like feel her around all the time and not get scared. I would just be like, wow, this is so interesting. Like, and Arthur does too. Like, there's one time we were swimming in the water at our house, and she had never been up to this house. We actually bought it a few months after she passed, and part of the reason we bought it was just because he was like, my mom would like this place so much, and she'd be so happy that I'm here. And we were swimming, and like we both were just like, whoa, like we just felt like she was watching us like up on the deck for a moment. Um,
Wow.
so we've had a lot of moments like that. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I don't have any like ghost stories really or anything like that. Just some really nice dreams. I've had like scary dreams about people that have passed too.
Mm.
Um, I don't want to go on too much, but I'll share this one just because it was kind of like disturbing and not as nice as the other ones. I had a couple about my grandmother. So my grandmother, Grandma Lolly, she had Alzheimer's for a long time before she passed, and she passed also when Gemma was a little baby. But you know, she was mentally gone for a long time before then. And when she was still alive, I think I had a dream that we were like in my grandparents' basement, and my grandpa was there who was already passed, and my grandma was too, and he was like it was almost like he was a corpse but alive within it, and he was feeling
Mm.
like really disturbed about my grandmother or something. And again, like I was the only person that could see him in the dream. It was really freaky. But I did have another one about her after she had passed, and like when I was with her, she looked like she looked maybe like 20 or 30 years ago and not now, and she was like just happy. And so that was really nice because it seemed like, I don't know,
Like
she
to
her
have,
it seemed like her soul was at peace, you know?
yeah. Hmm. And to also for you to get that after having one that wasn't so,
Yeah.
yeah. Because things like that, I think, stick in our mind. Well, I appreciate you sharing those stories, Lauren. I
Mhm.
know that, sometimes it's very vulnerable to share the things that we see or that come to us, but I feel like it's very real and not sometimes real in a tangible, like I can literally touch this type of way, but still there are so many things that we just don't know and we're not meant to know, but is still just as real. And I don't have that many stories myself. I have a really nice one of my dog. Her name was Patches. She was this little Pomeranian, and Daniel can tell you a story, and it just makes me laugh every single time because it was typical Patches of stealing food. But um, she passed in a very, I mean, she was declining. She got diabetes. I had to do the whole shots, insulin, everything like that. She was losing her sight. So it was coming to be time. She was 13, I believe. She'd been with me for most of my 20s, um, all of my 20s, actually. And yeah, lost her. We had to put her down. She just would not stop with the seizures that she was having, and so that was very heartbreaking. But she used to like sit in my lap or sit at my feet, or if I was laying in the bed, she would just like come lay on my belly. And there were times where I would be just kind of at a low point in my life, and I would just feel this like warmth and a little weight that sometimes it was scary and I didn't want to move. But when I thought about it and like really like not it got past the fear, like I felt as if that was her just coming to like, reassure me in the way that she used to do. I don't feel her anymore. Um and that probably has to do with we have another pup, but I always liked having that feeling, and she came a little bit after Macy was born too. And then the other story that I have is when Macy was a baby. And I know people say babies, they can't focus, so they're always looking off into space or whatever. But I remember being in my house that I am in now after having Macy. She was born in 2018. Daniel's dad passed a little bit before that. And I just remember like seeing Macy just like stare off past my shoulder. And at first I'm like, what is this baby like looking at? Like she was very focused. And I remember dozing at one point and I would see like this like little flicker like at the corner of my eye and I would like look and it was gone. It would be gone. But Lauren, it happened so many times. And also Macy would smile, these big little baby smiles behind my shoulder. And every time like I would just be in like that state of just relaxation or peace, I would see this flicker. And I always just got this feeling of Daniel's father, his like jovial spirit. Now, I will say, when I started stepping into my spirituality, I was very clear that I did not want to see things. I just was not ready to handle it. And even like as a kid, I just did not like being able to see things. And I do believe that I was able to, but because I had the fear, I kind of blocked it out. And that's another thing that you could do, putting up boundaries and not really wanting to see things, which I found out later on in my family. I have a family member who was able to see different people and spirits. And so I know that that's like in my lineage now, but I'm still working on like really accepting and like bringing that in. Um, it's going to take me expanding my mind a little bit to be a little bit more at ease with that. And I don't think I'm like truly ready to like see someone in front of me. But we'll see what happens with this Samhain ritual. I think even though I say I'm not ready, I think I'm open now more to the fact that this may happen. And I will say, I now that I think about it, I did have one more story. My dad passed back in '99, very suddenly, and I was very angry for a long time, like very angry. Angry that he didn't see me at prom. He didn't see me at all of these different milestones. He didn't see me graduate. Did all of these different things. I just had so much anger because he left because he was careless. So I remember though meeting Daniel and being with Daniel and like really like sitting with the question of, is this really the person that I want to be with? Because there were so many things that I loved about him. And I almost felt like I would see like something pass my door every time like I would think about this. And it almost looked like my father. Um, and I don't know if it was more of he wanted to like give an opinion, but because I wasn't open to like seeing him. So, and this was like waking. This wasn't a dream. This was very much like, what in the world just happened? And the house that I was staying in, like if you walk down the hall, you would be able to hear the creaking if somebody was actually there, but there wasn't. I would just kind of like see this thing. So, a little scary, maybe, I think, some of this, but not all of it. But those are my stories. I've had some really potent dreams, but my dreams, except for the one when I had my huge spiritual awakening, I don't really remember much. So, I would like to do some dream work though.
Rashida, would you ever be open to like furthering your intuitive studies to do mediumship?
I think I would. As I was talking and I was saying, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I think that's an old story that I have.
Mm.
Um, I've been very interested in my great grandmother and knowing about her and about my grandmother and what she used to be able to do before she shut that part of her down. Um, I think it's supposed to happen. And it feels good, like as I'm talking to you saying that, I would be very open to stepping more into that, especially armed with the knowledge of like what these beings can be and what these things are, and knowing like it's not just demons and it's not just devils and it's not, it really
Yeah.
is just about the energetics of it. So yeah, I would be open to it for sure.
Yeah, I think Hollywood just makes it look so scary, but my intuition is that it's really not different at all from what we already do, you know? It's just another, like, form of energy. Um, Personally, I think I'm not closed off to it, and maybe things will happen in my life later on because, people will pass and, um, life happens that will make me feel more interested in going that route. I don't know. I find like there are certain subjects and intuition that I'm still learning to feel more comfortable with when working with other people. And I find like contacting loved ones to be just such a sacred thing
Mhm.
that I really wouldn't want to like get in my own way and mess up. You know what I mean? I feel that way about that, about connecting with like spirit babies.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, kids too, I think. Um, just because, yeah, they're very sacred. And not that I ever want to give anyone inaccurate information about anything, but I think, like, yeah, it's just something I would want to do very skillfully. You know what I mean?
Oh, I totally get it. But
Yeah.
Lauren, you can't get the skill until you start doing it.
Yeah, I know. But I do have a feeling that it's really no different than what we already do. And I
Yeah.
get now, like, I used to watch shows about mediums and stuff, and they'd be like, "Does a red locket mean anything to you?" They'd say stuff like that, and it kinda seems, like, hokey, but I'm like, "Oh, I, like, now know, like, how they're accessing that in the visual," and just being kinda like, "Well, don't really know what it means, but here's what I'm seeing."
I totally feel that. There's been so many times where I'm like, this is what I'm seeing, and I have no idea. I'm not getting anything else from it.
Mhm.
So I feel that. No, I think I would be very open, and I feel you on that. I don't think it would be my main thing. I think it would just be something really cool to like tap into, because I know it's within my lineage of my
Mhm.
matrilineal lineage.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all very interesting, but I think really what it boils down to um is, especially when this time when we think of Samhain, really connecting with our ancestors, really be open to the possibilities and messages that maybe this thin veil has in store for us, and know that it's nothing creepy or demonic about it. It's really how we can make sense of this time and also death in a way.
Yeah.
And it can be a very, very, very beautiful experience if we allow it to be.
I agree. I do wanna add too, this just came up, when you are, like, calling on ancestors, I think from what we've learned, and it's important, is to be specific, not about which ones necessarily, but just to ask for the more like evolved and benevolent ones, because just because they're in our ancestry doesn't necessarily mean that they're evolved souls, you know?
Yes.
Um, so it's good to call upon those who um, are
Are going to be
able,
of your highest of good. And yeah.
exactly, and who are
Hmm.
able to bring in wisdom and guidance in a way, yeah, that's in alignment with our highest good instead of somebody who's still really attached to um, maybe some misperceptions about life and who still has a lot to learn. We all do, but like, you know. We don't want any
Yeah, but
tricksters in our
right,
midst.
and that's the biggest thing. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that was one of the biggest learnings for us, or for me anyway, is that, yeah, we have access to these, ancestors beings, but some of them are not for our highest good, and they just really wanna have some fun have some fun with you. So
Yeah, or
knowing that.
project their own ideals about life, or not ideals, but delusions, or um, limiting beliefs, you could even call it. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like our living family. Are you going to call upon every single person in your living family for advice? Like,
absolutely not. I'm just gonna put it down like that. Absolutely not. Well, which is also so important that, we talk about healing our lineage and doing this healing for, our ancestors, but in a way it really is true, because even though we think of them as like this, conceptual, like they were actually real people, but a lot of us have been, you know, we don't know our third generation back people, obviously, and they're just like a concept of a person in our mind. And we see them as like very old and very wise, even if they probably died young. We think that, when you automatically pass, that you gain this knowledge or this wisdom. But the energetics of it is, if they're not willing to, like, or they did not do the work in this life, not only do we hold on to some of that, we really do have to heal those misconceptions and those perceptions of what life is. So I don't know. The work is real, Lauren. It really is.
yeah. Um, let's say, are there any like movies you'd recommend? So I know there's like we talked about Hocus Pocus and the
My
scary
all-time
movies.
fave. Yeah.
Um, I love Coco, the
Oh,
Disney
that is a cute
the Disney
movie.
movie. Yeah, all about Dia de los Muertos, and it's just so sweet. Soul could be a cool movie to watch too. Obviously, like the Disney canon is what I'm most familiar with right now because of the kiddos.
I totally just watched Soul recently. I think I told you that Maciana and I were having a conversation about what is a soul and where does it come from and how does it get in our body, all the things that I did not ever think a 4-year-old would ask me. But I think that movie does a really good job of kind of like sharing that in a way that she can understand, but also talking about like just life. And when I think about like the rhythms of life, Lauren, and these moments, these Sabbats, it's really just allowing us to like just be really in tune and in touch with the cycle and the rhythm of life that we are consistently going through, but maybe because in our modern society we take for granted in a way. So I don't have any like other movies. I'm very much been on no TV for a while myself and can't remember. TV time is shared with Macy and what she would like these days. But yeah, I love that. I can't think of anything. Oh, you know what? I might put in our show notes. I did watch something a few years ago. I have to figure out what the name of it is, but if you're interested, I might remember it. It might be in the show notes, but I can't.
It's something.
Yeah, I see it. I see it playing in my head, and now I can't even like place what the name is. So, but yeah, any other things that you can think of, Lauren, for this time?
Uh, no, just that I'm excited to incorporate more of this intention behind the holiday while also like, doing all the fun modern
Fun,
stuff too. Yeah.
yeah.
And that like no one has been more excited for this holiday than my Gemma.
Oh, she gets ready year round. I literally see it.
And I'm
We're either in a
wondering like,
costume or a diaper, I think,
yeah,
right?
yes, we have been practicing trick or treating every day. Not on my I'm
Ooh.
not initiating this, just heads up. But we do a lot of like knock, 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 trick or treat. Oh, here's the candy. Yay. And then we do that over and over and over again. So she ready. She
Oh man,
ready.
have you, just from a parent perspective, I know you and I are very conscious about like our kids' sugar intake. Have you decided what you're going to do now that she is very aware of what to expect for this holiday?
Yeah, I think, well, right now I'm positive that she's way more excited about the trick or treating itself than the candy. You know, she hasn't really had a lot of candy. So I think we'll probably go through the candy, pick a couple things, and then either get rid of the rest or freeze it or something for
Yeah.
later. How about you?
Yeah, so ditto. I have the past couple years now have taken Maciana's bucket. She sees what she wants, and then slowly but surely things disappear out of it. One from either Daniel not just getting rid of it. He gets rid of it in his own way. But yeah, it'll just she gets one piece a day as long as we've had a decent day. We've been using our manners and all the things. Like it's still like an earning thing, I feel like. Because nowadays people are just throwing the candy out. Like her bucket gets full. So she doesn't necessarily know quite yet that, oh, this is disappearing a little bit faster than it should. Um, but I'm sure I'll have to think of something different when she starts getting older, which she'll be 5 next month. That'll probably be sooner than I expect. But yeah, I'm gonna let her have it as long as we're, brushing our teeth, all the things, doing our mouthwash. I just want her to know that sugar, when you intake the sugar, like there are certain things that you have to do in order to make sure that you stay healthy while you have fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's smart. You know, last year she wasn't big enough really. People kept offering her candy, but she was 1 years old. I'm like, she doesn't have any siblings. Like she doesn't know about candy yet. Please stop offering it to her.
Quit giving her the candy.
I bought these like real fruit sticks last year and handed them out, and like nobody wanted them.
You're probably like, what? These things are great and
Ar-
organic.
Arthur's like, really? This is what you want to hand out? And I'm like, I just don't feel good about like giving all these kids all like it's not just sugar, it's like sugar from these gigantic corporations who don't give a
Mm,
about our health, and there's food dyes and all kinds of stuff that I don't really want my kid having a lot of. So
so
why
why
would I
would you
give
give
it?
someone else? Because yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I like almost bought stuff yesterday as we were walking through Target, and I had like I just like almost panicked and I gave it up because they had like veggie straws and stuff like that that are shaped like pumpkins that are like meant to be handed out for Halloween. And I'm like, well, I could do that. And then there's like the M&Ms and the Twix and the Kit Kats, and I'm like, but that's what the kids want.
I will say when I took Maciana trick or treating in my best friend's neighborhood, because we live out in the middle of nowhere, there are
Hmm.
not a lot of houses that you can go trick or treating to. There was a house that handed out pretzels and like an apple or something, some type of like healthy thing. And obviously, I inspected the apple and then washed it. And I felt good. I felt good about eating it. I know sometimes you can get very going down the rabbit hole of people maybe doing things, but they seemed their intentions seemed fine, and they were very well known in the neighborhood. So I'm like, I would totally do that. Or like a clementine, maybe like a
Yeah.
clementine and something like that.
I just feel like the
Um,
kids will get bummed out. But like if it is something like there's little goldfish, like Halloween goldfish, there's stuff like that that
yeah,
a parent could like put in their kids' lunch, so at least you're giving them something that is like usable.
they would use. Yeah, very true. Very
I don't
true.
know. I will figure it out. There's also companies that make like, less problematic candy. Like Yum Earth is one of them. It's just like so expensive for a bag of it's already expensive for a bag of trick or treat candy. Like holy moly, That
Oh,
really changed
yeah.
in the last couple of years. But to get, like, organic or, like, less sugar or, like, only natural dyes or something like that, it's like $30 for, like, something that would be gone in 10 minutes of trick or treating. I'm like, "I don't know. I'll figure it out." But, oh, what was I
It
gonna tell you?
reminds me. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to tell you that I forget where I learned this, but the myth of, like, the razor blades in the fruit and stuff like that, it actually never even happened. It was one of those
What?
like, there have been virtually no incidents like that ever.
How
Um,
did that even, like, start?
it's just one of those, like, myths that went around and parents started panicking. I think something did happen, but it was, like, a parent putting it in something to give to their own child or something, like, it was some, like, messed up thing like that, and it
Oh,
became, like,
this
I don't
big
know.
ol' we need to have prepackaged
Yeah.
from the big corporation sugar candy.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. It
Ooh, maybe I'll bake cookies.
Ooh, that would be nice.
Yeah, because we live in a neighborhood that, like, people would not be like, "Oh god, where is this coming from?" You know?
Mhm.
Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, that's
Sorry, I'm, like,
nice.
going off on a tangent right
No, I mean, we are talking about Halloween and Samhain.
now.
No, I think that's really cool. I wanted to share real quick that when you talked about like the sugar-free or organic type of candy, Maciana, when she would go to the dentist, they would offer her a sucker after her appointment, after she got her cleaning and everything. Obviously, it was sugar-free. This chick would like put in her mouth and be like, "Mama, there is something wrong with this." And she wouldn't eat it. But yeah, and so I don't even know if it tastes. I mean, I know as adults it would taste good to us, but if a child knows what like refined sugar tastes like, I think it's really hard to like sway them.
I agree, and, like, a lot of the sucralose and that kind of crap, like, that's not really good for you either, so it's like,
Mm,
might as well have the sugar, but I don't know. I'm sure it's one of those things that we will enjoy the tasty treats in moderation and not make it bad. Um, I just, I have a lot of qualms against, like, the food industry, quote unquote food industry in the US, and that, like, that's what they give us to feed our children. So I like
mhm.
wrestle a little bit ethically with these kind of holidays, but I know also in the moment I usually don't care as much because I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah,
Like, it's
and
not gonna
you
kill
want to have
her. It's
fun. You
not what
don't
we
want it
eat
to
all the
make it a big
time.
deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't wanna give her a complex about it.
I think having the balance is good. You know, for me, it's Macy, you can eat these things, but we have to brush our teeth and we have to have healthy food when we eat them. Like you just can't
Mhm.
live off of this stuff. You'll get sick. I'll get
Yeah.
sick forever, mommy. I'm like, Not forever, honey, but you can get very sick." So I think the conversations, having the real conversations early on will be super helpful for, our kids not having those complexes when
Mhm.
they get older. But it's meant to be fun. It's meant to honor our ancestors. It's just meant to like, I feel like all of these Sabbats and all these holidays, like really just make it your own. We don't have to do everything that mainstream is doing. We can really make it our own ritual and our own holiday within our family. And it'll be great for them and they'll love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for rolling with me as I just went off
Yeah, no worries. You know
off
me.
subject.
I'm down for any type of conversation.
Um, yeah, I'm excited for this holiday. Thanks for chatting about it. Yeah, it'll be nice to honor a few of these people in our lives that we really miss, and to have like some sort of ritual around it, and then to like put on the costumes and have a good time too.
Absolutely. And besties, for you listening that probably made it all the way through our mom ramblings at the end, we would love to know. Shoot us on Instagram like what you're doing for Samhain and if you even have any traditions or rituals that you follow. We'd love to know.
Yes. All right, Rashida, thank you so much. I love
Thank
you.
you. I love you too. Happy Samhain. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible episode. If you loved it, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and tell all your besties about us.
You can also connect with us on Instagram at Your Spiritual Besties Podcast, and be sure to say hello and share your thoughts about the episode. Love you, bestie. Talk soon.